Hello, good morning. Welcome to Pause for Faith. Nice to be with you. And just let me check the videos coming through. We're thinking about vocations on this series, these recent mornings, and maybe one or two next week as well. And here's the classic question that comes up a lot, especially with the young people I work with at the universities: is being single a vocation? Yeah, it's relatively easy to talk about the vocation to married life, to be a priest, to be a consecrated brother or sister or whatever. And then the back of people's mind, especially because I'm working with so many young people, but hang on, is my life as a single person a vocation? This came up in a particular way for me because a few years ago, I wrote a short booklet about vocations and helping people to think about vocation. And in the first draft, I had these chunky headings of the different types of vocation, and I didn't have the heading single life. And a couple of friends read it through and they said, "You've got to say something about the single life as a vocation." And I said, in genuine curiosity, also feeling a little bit defensive, I said, but hang on, most of the single people I know working in universities and in youth work, most of them are searching for their vocation. And secondly, the single people I do know who have made a lifelong commitment to the single life would come under the heading of consecrated people, in the sense of they've consecrated their life to the single life for the sake of the Lord. So I said to my friends, I'm not quite sure about how to do this, but they challenged me and they said, no, you need to think more about this. And in the end, in this little CTS booklet that I can advertise it and you can have a look yourselves, there is a solid chapter about the single life, what it means to be single, and to what extent it is and isn't a vocation. And that's what I just want to think about now. Because clearly, just to say right at the beginning, you can see two sides to this. And I'm going to be rambling round a little bit because there are lots of different sides. But just obviously, on the one hand, you want to affirm everyone, every single person, that everyone has a vocation, that if you are single now, this is what the Lord wishes for you, at least now, and your life has meaning and purpose. And in this sense, you're called to live this life now, even if it will change. So you want to be very affirming, and you want to say, in some sense, everyone has a vocation and everyone is called. But on the other hand, you don't want to say to every single person, your single life is the whole meaning of your life, that this is a lifelong commitment for you, because for most single people I know, it is temporary. It may not be something they've chosen. It may just be where they are, and they may be searching and looking for something else. A single person will often say, I'm single, I'm at peace with being single now, but I am searching for my vocation with a capital V. So here is my summary. And as I say, this isn't tidy. I just want to map out some of the different meanings of being single, and to recognize there are lots of different meanings. So if you are single, see if any of these thoughts apply to you. First of all, just by way of introduction, clearly people are single for many different reasons. So if you are single, I'm looking into the camera here, if you are single at this moment, whatever the reason, please believe that your life right now has immense value. Every person, as I said a couple of days ago, is called to a life of holiness. And in this sense, every person who is single is called to live out their Christian vocation, wherever it might be leading them in the future. So for whatever reason, if you are single now, you are called to a life of holiness, to live out your Christian vocation through this moment of being single. For many of you, this means through your work, or your study, or your friendships, or your care for your family, your service to others. These are all areas of life in which you are meeting Christ and bringing his love to others. So you can give thanks to God for your life now and the opportunities it's presented to you, even with all the struggles and frustrations as well. It wouldn't be quite right, I think, this is just my opinion now, I don't think it would be quite right to say that every single person has a vocation to be single, in the sense of a lifelong commitment. So we must be careful in the way we speak about the single vocation. I think it might be best to say that the single life is a concrete vocation, a commitment, only when it's been chosen as a response to a sense of calling. Or at least, secondly, when it's been willingly accepted as a long-term way of life in response to circumstances. So in that sense, if you want to speak with a slightly larger V about my single life as a vocation, a calling, a commitment, I would say that makes sense if you've really freely chosen and committed to live that life for a certain time or for the rest of your life, or if because of all the circumstances, you've accepted and recognized that this is where you are meant to be for this time and possibly for a medium to long term. And in that sense, the single life is something that you've said yes to, and it's giving your life shape, rather than being something that is simply provisional because you're young and looking around for other things to do. So I'm going to really dig deep now into some of the distinctions. You might say this is a bit too detailed, but if you're single, it might be helpful. If you're single, which of these boxes do you fall into, these categories? Some single people are just getting on with life. Just getting on with life. Many people are single and happy about that and muddling along. You might be doing something fulfilling and worthwhile at work. You might be hard at your studies. You might be involved in some all-consuming project. You might be too young or too busy or too distracted or too happy to be thinking big thoughts about future commitments. And if this is you, you're just where you are and you're single and you've got lots of things to be doing and thinking about, and you're not particularly thinking about the future. If this is you, that's fine. That's okay. Be happy and be holy. Just make sure that now and then you're stopping to think about your vocation as a Christian, and that now and then you're stopping to ask the Lord in prayer if he has any other plans for you. You have every right to make the most of this situation without undue anxiety. How lovely that you are where you are and you're not obsessed with the future and worrying about what you haven't got. All I'd say is keep your peace and just every now and then lift your head up and look around and pray to God, as we do every day in the Our Father. Thy will be done. Lord, here I am. I feel this is the right place for me. Is there something you want for me next month, next year? And if you haven't made a lifelong commitment, to say to the Lord, Lord, what is your will? Really to give him your life, to give him permission. With great joy, you might not be desperate to find your vocation, but he might be longing to tell you it. And if you can say to him, Lord, what do you want? And I'm willing, I'm open, I'm free. So, single and just getting on with life and happy. The next heading is, are you single and searching? Single and searching. Many single people are hoping to discover a more particular vocation, to make a lifelong commitment to marriage or to the priesthood or to consecrated life, but they're unsure about which one. So they're searching and they're unsure. So the discernment in this sense is, what do I think is right for me? What does God want for me? Or they do feel pretty clearly that this path is the right one for me. They're clear about wanting to get married, but, for example, but they're still looking for a husband or wife, or they're discerning, they're dating someone and pretty clear, but they're still discerning and thinking, is this the right person, and how will we move forward? So single and searching and asking questions and trying to listen to God and gradually feeling that this is the right direction and still not 100% sure yet. If this is the case for you, then just to do, and I won't talk about this now, in fact, maybe I'll talk about this in the next couple of sessions, just to do the normal things that help you in your discerning, to be praying, to be open to God's will, to be listening to your heart and looking for the signs of a vocation. And I don't just mean here supernatural signs written on the wall or visions of angels. I mean the ordinary, trustworthy signs that something is right for us and that God is pointing us in a certain direction or calling us. Obvious, well, tried and tested things like what is in your heart, what feels right for you, what gifts do you have, what do people see in you, what's coming up for you in prayer. So this is another talk, and I think we might do this on Monday or Tuesday. But just, you're single, you're searching, you're trying to discern, and just to encourage you to keep discerning and keep seeking and praying, Lord, show me what you want, be very open. But remember, as I said a couple of days ago, that your happiness doesn't just lie in the future. God wants you to find peace and to live a life of holiness in this present moment, even if your future is unclear. He wants you to trust him, to do everything you can for the future, discerning, working it out, but to be patient and happy and peaceful in the present. So don't overinvest in the future as if it stops you living in the present. Okay, so this is a group of people, maybe it's you, you're happy in what you're doing, you're at peace about being single, but you think this probably isn't the whole of your life, and you're searching either gently or very actively to say, what does God want, and how can I find my lifelong vocation, and how can I find, if it's God's will, the husband or wife that I'm longing for, or the religious order that's right for me. Keep moving forward. Another group of people, single people, and of course there's lots of overlapping here, those who are single and struggling. Those who are single and struggling with being single. Some people, many people in fact, are single not through choice, but through circumstances. They wish they were not single, but they can't see a way out. Perhaps you're not drawn to marriage, or you haven't been able to find a husband or wife, or haven't found it easy to meet people and to date. Perhaps you want to be a priest or live a consecrated life, but you haven't been able to move forward, or you've been, as it were, turned down by the diocese or religious order. There's lots of other situations, though, where people are in this situation and there's not an obvious way out. Perhaps you're caring for a sick relative, an elderly parent, or a child, and you're not able to take on any other commitments. Perhaps you are sick yourself and don't have the freedom to be exploring and moving around. There may be other difficulties in your life that make you feel you're just not able to pursue a vocation that you would like to. So there's lots of different reasons why people are single, and lots of different situations where people feel, here I am, I'd like to move forward, but I can't for whatever reason. And so, in effect, in all these situations, it's so important to trust in God and to believe that he knows what he is doing with your life. Really, to trust in the Lord and to believe, really to believe that he knows what he's doing with your life. And he does have a plan, and that your life has meaning. And by plan, I don't mean that these clear steps marked out, and in week 3 and in month 7, this is what's going to happen. The Lord does know what he's going to do, but in the sense of just handing the future over to the Lord. And of course, you're praying about it, and you're trying to find a way forward, but just keeping that sense of trust, which is hard, and peace, inner peace. There may be, just to be honest about this, very real suffering and disappointment involved. And just there are moments in life, even lasting for a long time, when there is suffering and disappointment and us feeling I'm not where I want to be or should be. And the great temptation to look around at our friends, our family, people on the TV, thinking, look at what they can do. Look at the vocation they've discovered, and I haven't been able to. But I would challenge you a little bit, as I would myself and every Christian, to say that you need to try to accept that in this moment, in these circumstances, this is God's will for you. Not in the sense of God has condemned you to this, but just we need to trust that God is our loving Father, to trust in his providence, that he's allowed these circumstances, your life in this way for this moment. I'm not saying forever, but just the Lord is a loving, all-powerful God, and he has led you to this place, and he has allowed this situation. So it's to try to accept that peacefully, even if it's hard, in this present moment. And if it is a suffering and a cross, to carry this cross with as much humility and love as possible, and acceptance. And really to watch against the temptation to despair or self-pity. You can live your Catholic faith right now. You can love God and love your neighbour right now. And in that sense, the deepest meaning of our life, a call to holiness, to love God, to love our neighbour. This isn't diminished for you in any way. It's just you're doing it in circumstances that feel a lot harder than you'd like them to be. And to trust that this is happening for a reason, and that one day you'll find it out. Tomorrow or next week or next year. Your vocation, you might ask me about vocation. What's my vocation? Well, your vocation right now, without a doubt, is to show the love of Christ in these difficult circumstances. And through that love, if it's his will, he will lead you to a new stage or help you to find new meaning in this present situation. That's a promise. The Lord will lead you to a different stage, a different place, one you might say now, somewhere I want to be, or he will help you to find new meaning and understanding and acceptance in these present circumstances, and give you the grace to live through this with love, and hopefully even some peace and some joy. Okay. Next group of people. So this might be you. This is not as common as the other three, and I'll just summarize them all at the end. But maybe this is you. Some people are committed to the single life. Some people are committed. In effect, I'm not saying they've taken vows. We'll come on to that. That's the next last bit. But in effect, they've made a personal commitment to being single and to living a life of celibacy, possibly for the rest of their lives, even though they haven't taken formal vows. Some, they maybe wouldn't choose this language, but some people choose celibacy, choose to remain single, because they wish to give their lives in service to others, or because it allows them to follow a particular path in life. So this isn't someone necessarily who's gone off to become a brother or sister, but just there's a way of life that for them in these circumstances, it seems to involve not getting married and not going off to be a priest or a brother or a sister. It's an all-consuming life, and someone through their Christian faith has found real peace in this and is very happy in it. Some people recognize that they are unlikely to get married, just for all sorts of reasons. Yes, just I feel this isn't going to be my life, and they willingly accept this and commit their lives to following Christ and living their faith as single people. Again, life is so complicated. I'm not trying to over-categorize people, but just many people, for different reasons, feel not drawn to marriage. This isn't going to be right for me. This isn't the direction my life seems to be going in, and to find, hopefully, to find peace in that. And when it comes to an acceptance that I'm going to try and live my single life, and I'm not looking to be married or to find another vocation, there is a moment for many people. It might be very gradual, or it might be quite striking and sudden, when there is an acceptance of these circumstances and this life, and wanting to renew their commitment to the Lord and to their faith. Not that they become consecrated or anything, but just, here I am, this is where the Lord wants me to be a Christian, to live my life, to love God and love my neighbour, and let me get on with it as joyfully as I can. And in this sense, for all these different people who have ended up in a place where they believe that they will be single for the rest of their life, and they're open to this, and they're accepting this, and they're, in this sense, they're committed to this. Those who accept the single life in this way, for whatever reason, I think they can rightly think of this as their vocation. They've found peace with this way of life, and to see that this is a call from God to live a life of holiness in this context, which will bear great fruit and be richly rewarded. But just a little thing at the end here, maybe we shouldn't think of this kind of single life and celibacy as a lifelong vocation, because circumstances might change. You might be sitting there thinking, yeah, I've found peace in my life. I can think of a few people like this. Yeah, I've just found peace in my life. Maybe a year ago, 10 years ago, I was desperate to find my vocation, to be married or to be a priest or a consecrated. And just, I've ended up in this place, and I'm very happy and at peace. And this feels like what God has planned for me, and I'm accepting it as my vocation. Well, that's great, but just maybe circumstances will change, and maybe God will surprise you. We should be open to the unexpected, but thank God for your peace. And finally, this was really yesterday, thinking about the different states of life, the different lifelong vocations. Some single people are consecrated. They live a consecrated life. They have taken lifelong vows of poverty, chastity, meaning lifelong consecrated celibacy, and obedience. Poverty, lifelong celibacy, and obedience. But this is not a monk or a nun in a monastery. It's not a brother or a sister in a community doing great apostolic work. These are single people who are consecrated and continue to live and work in the world, sometimes as members of a secular institute, for example, or a different kind of ecclesial community, because there are so many different types of communities today. Or as a consecrated virgin, or as a hermit, although a hermit isn't technically, well, I'm not sure actually whether a hermit's living in the world or not, technically. So just here we are. We do have, you say to me, is being single a vocation in the sense of a lifelong consecrated commitment, a calling? This is my life. This is the meaning of my life. Well, absolutely for those who have been consecrated to the single life. And as I say, different examples of that. Those who are consecrated to the single life and to celibacy and poverty and obedience have the assurance of God and of the church that this is their lifelong commitment and their vocation. So it's different from all the other headings of I happen to be single, or I'm struggling and single, or I'm open and fairly committed, but life could change in theory. If you're consecrated and you've taken these 3 evangelical counsels, these lifelong vows and promises, then of course this is very much your vocation. So lots of nuances here. This isn't tidy. Just let me go back over what I've said. There are lots of sides to this. Is being single a vocation? Well, yes, in the sense of here you are, you're called to holiness, you have a vocation to live your life now, and you are a single person, so you're living your vocation as a single person. On the other extreme, you've made a lifelong vow of consecration to poverty, chastity, and obedience as a single person, and so much in the middle where people are searching or committed or half committed or uncommitted, and just to see that the Lord loves you and has a purpose for you, but to think carefully about what this means for your vocation. Some of you are just getting on with life. Some of you are actively searching and discerning. Some of you are struggling very profoundly. And some of you, because of circumstances and life, are fairly committed to this as a way of life. And some of you are consecrated. Isn't being single amazing? The richness and diversity. And I hope this has been helpful. Let's finish with a couple of quotations, a short one and a long one. This is from St. Catherine of Siena, a famous quotation. St. Catherine says, "If you are who you are meant to be, you will set the world on fire. If you are who you are meant to be, you will set the world on fire." And I would say that this isn't about discovering who you're meant to be in the future. That's like a bigger thing, but just who you are meant to be now. So whatever your vocation is, be committed to it. Pray that you can be renewed in it and discover new meaning and new depths in it, and that you can be given the grace to live it through all its difficulties, because there will always be difficulties with a vocation. And if you're single, for whatever reason, be the holy, saint-loving person that you are meant to be today, and you will set the world on fire. And just to give a lovely little, very short testimony from a friend of mine who is a consecrated single person in a secular institute. So this is a form of consecrated life, not strictly religious life, but consecrated life. And this friend is in the community of Notre Dame de Vie, a French Carmelite secular institute. So this is what's so interesting, you see. Not Carmelite sisters as in nuns living in a monastery, cloistered from the world, praying 24/7. This is a Carmelite consecrated person, but who is living in the world. So just here's a very short, simple testimony. She writes, "In my story, it seems to me that it was God who was looking for me more than myself, and my vocation came in a way as a surprise. I wanted to get married and have children, 8 of them. And at the same time, I could feel that God was calling me very gently but persistently. It was a struggle for me to accept this calling. And paradoxically, I was feeling very much free to choose, free to accept this or not. I knew that whatever my choice of vocation would be, and even if I didn't answer this calling, God would still love me very much. And this reality wouldn't change. It was a bit like having 2 doors open in front of me, each one opening to a path as luminous as the other, and I had to choose one. I remember it vividly as I was in the kitchen and my mum was asking me if it was worth writing a cheque to continue my studies or not. I had a few seconds to choose, and it seemed to me that I would be slightly happier in the consecrated life, so I stopped my studies and joined Notre Dame de Vie. It is just looking back now that I realise it was the right choice. Good. And just a final thought here, just because the comments here, the chat caught my eye. Can you say something about consecrated virgins? That would need some extra time. I've talked about it a little bit, and I'll come back to that when I speak about consecrated life. Numeraries. Yeah, again, I can come on to that a little bit more detail another time. But someone else has said here, David has said, what about widows and widowers? Well, I think most of what I've said would apply to the widow and the widower, in the sense that in terms of your state of life, now, if you're a parent caring for children, that itself is a commitment and in many ways a vocation. So your life needs to revolve around that primary commitment. But the widow and the widower would come under much of what I've said, in the sense of you are free to marry. You're single in that sense of being free to marry and open to the different vocations that are open to a Christian. So I think a lot of what I've said would apply to widows and widowers, depending on your circumstances and the commitments that you do have because of the family life that you've had when you were married. All right, nice to be with you. If you're watching live, it's Friday morning. We're back tonight, but not over the weekend. We'll have Sunday Mass at 11:30. God bless. See you soon.